Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to start with a big thank you because you're now over 25,000 watching my video, and I'm going to show you today how to do that nice sweater that I was wearing while showing you how to do this top. Okay, so just like we did last time, you're going to start by retracing your favorite t-shirt block, and I did start with my back because there's only a little correction to do. My t-shirt block already have seam allowance included, so remember to take the measurement on the inside line, and what you have to do on the back, it's only to enlarge your neckline. So from the neck point, you're going to enlarge by about 1.5 centimeter. You're going to just continue your neckline from the center back, so keep your 90 degree for about 3 cm. Retrace your neck, add your seam allowance, and cut your pattern. Then one last thing before to put the back away, you're going to measure your neck and write down the measurements. Now for the sleeve, I did retrace my sleeve. I just cut the top part since there's no change. If you did notice, I had extra long sleeve that were going over my hand like that. So I'm going to elongate my sleeve by about 6-7 centimeter. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to enlarge a little bit because the wrist is smaller than the top of your hand. So I'm going to enlarge about 1 centimeter on each side and square for at least the width of your hem. So same thing on both sides. So I'm going to report my notch right away, so at 2.5, and you're going to connect with a S-shaped curve. So you could do only one side and then fold your pattern on the grain line to cut both sides exactly the same. I now just retrace my front. I'm going to ask you to flip your pattern and trace at least the top part on the other side. Now we're going to fix the neck or enlarge the neck just like we did on the back. So my seam allowance are included. So I'm going to measure from the intersection of the seam allowance 1.5 centimeter. And then we're going to start tracing that little opening that you saw on my top. And I'm going to give you some measurement. You're going to go down 7 centimeter from the seam line and trace square line about 6 centimeter on each side of the center. Then you're going to connect the 6 centimeter point to the 1.5 centimeter on the other side. You could do it on the other side also and connect to the other side. So now you could see pretty much the size of the opening you'll get, but remember it's going to stretch a lot because it's a knit block. Just to make sure that there's no confusion, I'm already going to put my information for the front side that I'm keeping. And what you're going to do, you're going to elongate your center front towards the top, and you're going to square a line from the center, touching the other side of your sweater towards the other side seam. Now on that square line, I'm going to put the back neck measurement that I found on my pattern, minus 10%. Minus 10% is going to be for me 10.4. From that 10.4, you're going to square up for a little while. Now on your back neck line, you're going to divide your line by 3. You're going to connect with the opposite corner. Now you measure the original line to the 1.5 in point and pivot your measurement on your new line. This little twist is to make sure that the back neckline is going to be a soft line. So from that point, that is the same length, you're going to curve until more or less 3 cm from your center back line. Now, since straight line very often look curved on the mannequin, we're going to remove some fabric by continuing the back curve in the front on that point, and I'm going to retrace, trying to meet the original line that we did. The next step is going to be to place on my center back the width I want my collar. You could do it as wide as you want. I'm going to do it 9 cm for now, and then you're going to square from center back. We're almost done. We have one more construction line to do, and it's going to be to connect the top of the collar on the back to the shoulder on the front. Now, to be able to separate our two pieces, since I want to cut my front on fold, I'm going to ask you to take the final line. So my final line, if you remember, it's this one, the curved one, and we're going to continue this line until the side seam. Now we just need to put seam allowance at 2 area parallel to my center back, and a seam allowance parallel to my back neckline. Now remember, this here is my good side pattern, so we just put the seam allowance on the back neck. I want you to go square up until the seam line. Now that the plan is finished, we're going to double the paper for this area here, pin them together, and cut all around. Now, before to separate your piece, you're going to take your tracing wheel and trace on that diagonal line that you did. Also mark the indication of the corner and do your armhole notch. You could now separate your piece and put the seam allowance on the bottom front piece. Like we did for the other corner, just bring it up, square up, and cut. Now for the top piece, I'm going to mark my seam line, put the seam allowance, and cut also with the 90-degree corner. Et voila, we did complete the front pattern. So we just have to cut, and to be able to cut with the right grain line, I'm just going to overlap my seam line and trace my grain line on the top part according to my center front. So my bottom part is going to be cut one time because it's on fold, but the top part is going to be cut 2 times, one for each side of your garment. So the top is all cut, my front on fold. We're now going to put it back together by first sewing the top part with the bottom. So both sides, right side with right side, we're going to assemble these two. Now that they're assembled, we're going to do the finishing around this area. So starting on one side, at the little square corner that we have, so we'll put the bias. I cut a bias of 3.5 centimeter, and I'm going to sew it with my folder. So if you remember, the bias has to be stretched on the cut on the stretchy side. So we're going to sew it from the corner, do all the corner all around. You're going to notice that I'm bringing the fabric straight when I go around the corner to make sure I grab everything. So just like that, and we do the big U shape of your top. Now notice how the bias bring the fabric a little bit in, And remember, when you wear it, it's going to stretch, so it's going to go back to the original size, but keeping the garment close on your body. Now that you're done with the bias, you're going to assemble your center back. Remember to twist your front, so which side you want to bring over to the other, and then just bring it to the center front, so the two center front together, so you'll be able to see which one is the good side. And you're going to put your back just like that, right side with right side, and assemble your center back seam. Now the center back seam is done. We're going to do the finishing on the top part of the collar. So starting at the corner just like we did last time, and we're going to go all around until the other side. Now top and bottom of the collar part is done. With the finishing, you're going to take your back and put it good side with your front, and assemble the shoulder. And remember, the front did not have the neck or seam allowance at the neck, so you must finish at the neck area with a little extra for the back, just like that. Now to make sure you don't do extra twist, if you notice, I always put it back the way it should be, so one twist. And now to assemble the collar with at the neck in the back, you're going to place it right side with right side and hold it from the inside and assemble your back neck collar. If you remember, again, front doesn't have the seam allowance, but the back does. So you place it right next to the seam to start, and you finish the same way. It's a good idea to first tack with the plain machine, and then you go overlock. After you sew your back neck, remember that for the assembling here you have a 10% less on the collar, so you have to stretch to reach the corner, and then stretch again to reach the other shoulder. And for the finishing, when you're done, you should have a corner like that with one seam coming out. So to clean that out, you send both seam allowance towards where there's no bias, and you do a tiny little top stitch just for the corner to hold those seams and make a nice clean corner. I did it here just for you to see, about 1 or 2 centimeters, not more. So you have nice corner, and the seam allowance doesn't come out. When you're done with that, you could just go ahead and assemble your sleeve as usual, flat on the machine. Make sure you put the back with the back and front with the front. Once your sleeves are sewn, you could go ahead and assemble your side seam, and you're going to go from the bottom all the way to the bottom of the sleeve in one seam. So all the way. Remember to shift your seam allowance while you're sewing to eliminate the thickness, and go ahead, assemble both side seams. So my side seam are sewn. We would just have to hem the bottom. I did my overlock already, so you could fold and stitch exactly at the edge with a tiny stitch. You might also want to pull a little bit while sewing to look like a cover stitch machine. For this one, I did put the bias on the sleeve hem, so I'm not going to fold it. I'll leave it longer like that. So the last thing you do in that case is to stitch a little bit to hold the seam allowance, so or vertical or horizontal, and it's time to try it on. Here it is. I'm wearing the top I just did. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you share with your friend, and I see you next time.